Luna Base hung in space like a metal flower, its white structures reaching out from Earth's moon in graceful curves. Velthara watched it through her ship's sensors as the largest hegemony fleet in history approached from deep space. 400 warships moved in perfect formation, their black hulls blocking out stars. It was humanity's last major stronghold. If Luna Base fell, Earth would be defenseless. Admiral Bora stood on the command deck of the orbital station, looking out at the approaching enemy fleet through reinforced windows. She was older than most human military officers Velthara had observed, maybe 50 years old, with gray streaks in her black hair and calm eyes that had seen too much war. "Admiral," reported her tactical officer, "final count is 412 enemy ships. Our fleet strength is 31 vessels." Bora nodded without changing expression. "Send word to Earth Command. Tell them we'll hold as long as possible." "What about evacuation procedures?" the officer asked. "There are civilians in the base. Military personnel stay to protect them. Anyone who wants to leave can take the next transport." Velthara expected mass evacuation. No rational being would face such impossible odds. Her sensors detected the transport ships preparing to leave Luna Base, but they were mostly empty. Only a few dozen people climbed aboard. The rest chose to stay. Bora opened a communication channel to the entire fleet. Her voice was steady and clear. "All stations, this is Admiral Bora. In 30 minutes we face the largest enemy force in this war. We are outnumbered 13-1. Our weapons are inferior. Our ships are older. Our chances of survival are almost zero." Velthara waited for the Admiral to announce surrender terms or evacuation plans. Instead, Bora continued. "Standard deployment." The response from 31 ship captains came back immediately. "Understood, Admiral. Standard deployment." As if facing impossible odds was just another day at work, the hegemony fleet moved into attack position with mechanical precision. Their commander, war leader Vexthol, opened a communication channel to demand surrender. His voice was amplified by bio-neural implants, designed to inspire terror in lesser species. "Human forces, you are completely surrounded. Your destruction is certain. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick." Admiral Bora's response was broadcast across all channels. "This is Luna Base. We are outnumbered, outgunned, and cut off from reinforcements. Thank you for the warning." She closed the channel without waiting for a reply. War leader Vexthol had conquered 43 star systems. He understood fear, desperation, and the mathematics of military power. He did not understand humans who thanked him for threatening them. The battle began with the largest energy barrage Velthara had ever witnessed. 400 ships fired simultaneously, their weapons lighting up space like an artificial sun. The barrage should have destroyed Luna Base instantly. Instead, it struck layers of defensive screens that had been hidden from sensors. The base's shields flared brilliant white but held firm. When the light faded, Luna Base was still there. "Impossible," War Leader Vexthol growled to his tactical officer. "Those shields require more power than their entire base can generate." "War Leader, I'm detecting massive energy signatures from Earth itself. They're beaming power directly to the moon." On Earth's surface, hundreds of power plants and fusion reactors had been connected through a planetary grid. Every city, every factory, every home was sending energy to defend Luna Base. An entire world was powering the shields, but shields could not win a battle. The human fleet moved to attack, and Velthara witnessed something that broke every rule of space combat she knew. The humans used their own space stations as weapons. Mining platforms filled with explosive charges rammed into enemy formations. Cargo haulers packed with antimatter became guided missiles. Civilian transport ships jury-rigged with military equipment joined the fight alongside warships. Captain Sue commanded a converted passenger liner that should have been evacuating civilians. Instead, she flew supply runs through active battle zones, delivering ammunition to cut off ships while enemy fire exploded around her hull. "This is Happy Journey requesting docking clearance." Her voice came over the communications as energy beams missed her ship by meters. "Sue, you're insane," replied the captain of the destroyer she was approaching. "It's too dangerous." "Maybe," Sue laughed, steering between two enemy fighters. "But my cargo hold is full of missiles you need, and my grandmother always said idle hands are the devil's workshop." She was humming. Flying through a battle zone while enemy ships tried to kill her, and she was humming children's songs to keep calm. The converted passenger liner docked with the destroyer just long enough to transfer ammunition, then disappeared back into the chaos to help another ship. Velthara tracked Sue's vessel for the next 6 hours as it made impossible run after impossible run, somehow avoiding destruction through skill, luck, and pure determination. But the mathematics of war could not be ignored forever. The hegemony had too many ships and too much firepower. One by one, the human vessels fell. The mining platforms were destroyed. The cargo haulers were blown apart. The civilian ships were targeted and eliminated. Luna base's shields began to fail as the power beaming from Earth was disrupted by orbital bombardment. Admiral Bora watched her fleet shrink from 31 ships to 20, then 15, then 10. Each loss was announced calmly by her tactical officer. Each loss was acknowledged with a simple nod. She never showed fear or desperation, even as her command fell apart around her. When only 5 human ships remained operational, War Leader Vexthol sent another surrender demand. Human Admiral, your fleet is destroyed. Your base is defenseless. Surrender now and I will spare the civilian population. Bora's response was immediate. All remaining ships formed defensive sphere around civilian sections. Hold position until the last transport escapes. Admiral, her tactical officer said quietly. The last transport left 20 minutes ago. Then we hold position until we can't hold any more. The 5 remaining human ships formed a tight circle around Luna base's civilian quarters. They had no ammunition left. Their weapons were destroyed. Their engines were failing. But they held their formation as the hegemony fleet closed in for the final attack. Velthara expected them to break and run when faced with certain death. Instead, she heard something that would haunt her for the rest of her long life. The crews began singing. It was the same song she had heard during the space battle weeks ago. A simple melody about standing together and never giving up. The voices came from 5 dying ships whose crews knew they would not see another sunrise. But they sang anyway. War Leader Vexthol hesitated. In all his battles, he had never heard defeated enemies sing. The sound was disturbing, illogical, and somehow terrible. It suggested these humans were not defeated at all, even though their ships were falling apart. Admiral Bora's voice joined the song from Luna Base's command center. Her officers sang with her. Across the base, thousands of human voices joined together in defiance of death itself. The hegemony fleet opened fire on the 5 human ships. The vessels were destroyed one by one, their hulls breaking apart in brilliant explosions. But even as they died, the singing continued from Luna Base. When the last ship was destroyed, silence fell over the battle zone. Luna Base hung in space, its shields gone, its defenses shattered. 400 enemy ships surrounded it like hungry predators. War Leader Vexthol prepared to accept the humans' final surrender. Instead, Admiral Bora opened a communication channel one last time. Her voice was calm and clear, without a trace of fear or defeat. To all hegemony forces, you have destroyed our fleet. You have broken our defenses. You have won this battle, but you have not broken us. You will never break us. Because we are human and we choose to stand. She closed the channel and waited for the end. But the end did not come. War Leader Vexthol stared at his tactical displays, trying to understand what he was seeing. His fleet had won a complete victory. The humans had nothing left to fight with. They should be begging for mercy. Instead, they were still singing. For the first time in his long military career, War Leader Vexthol felt something he had never experienced before. Something cold and uncertain that made his bioneural implants flutter with confusion. He felt afraid. Velthara stared at the assignment tablet in her 4-fingered hands. The blue light from the screen made her silver skin look pale. She read the words again, not believing what she saw. Observe human combat behavior during the Savage Hegemony conflict. She was one of the best xenobiologists in the Galactic Council. For 300 years, she had studied alien species across the galaxy. But humans? They were barely worth her time. Everyone knew humans were weak. Primitive creatures who had only learned to travel between stars 200 years ago. Velthara walked through the crystal halls of the council building on Nexus, Prime. Other council members moved past her with graceful steps, their minds connected through telepathy, sharing thoughts without speaking. It was civilized. It was advanced. It was everything humans were not. She entered the briefing room where High Counselor Zethvar waited. His tall, thin body gleamed like polished metal. His large eyes held the wisdom of 1,000 years. "Velthara," he said without moving his lips. His voice came directly into her mind. "You have read your assignment." "Yes, High Counselor. But I do not understand. Why waste time observing humans? They will surrender within hours." Zethvar's mental voice carried amusement. "That is exactly why we need you there. The Council wants complete documentation of their failure. Other primitive species will see what happens when they try to fight above their level." Velthara accessed the human files in her mind. The data flowed like water through her thoughts. Humans lived only 80 to 100 years. Their bodies were soft and easily broken. They made decisions based on emotions instead of logic. They had no telepathic abilities. Their weapons were crude. Their ships were slow. "The savage hegemony has been conquering systems for 5 centuries, Zethvar continued. They are brutal, efficient, and unstoppable. The humans volunteered to face them. It will be," he paused, "educational. When do I leave?" Velthara asked. "Immediately. Your observation ship is ready." The journey to human space took 3 days. Velthara spent the time reviewing more files. She learned about human wars throughout their history. They fought constantly, often over small pieces of land or different beliefs. They killed each other with primitive weapons. They seemed to enjoy violence, but something puzzled her. In every major conflict, humans showed strange behavior. They would fight even when they could not win. They would die for ideas instead of surrendering. They called it honor or duty. Velthara found it illogical. The observation ship's silent witness was invisible to most sensors. It could watch battles without being detected. The ship's AI briefed Velthara as they entered the combat zone. "The human fleet consists of 47 ships," the AI reported in its calm voice. "The savage hegemony has brought 200 vessels. The humans are outnumbered 4 to 1. They will retreat," Velthara said confidently. "Unknown. Human communication suggests they intend to fight." Velthara laughed, a sound like wind chimes. "Impossible. No logical species fights when defeat is certain." She focused her attention on one human ship, a destroyer called the UES Defiant. The vessel was small compared to hegemony warships. Its hull showed battle scars from previous fights. According to the files, its captain was named Minho. Velthara activated the observation systems. She could now see and hear everything that happened on the human ship. The bridge was cramped and filled with primitive controls. Humans sat at stations, pressing buttons and watching screens. No telepathic links, no shared consciousness. Each human worked alone. Captain Minho stood in the center of the bridge. He was young for a ship commander, maybe 30 years old. His dark hair was cut short. His uniform was clean but showed signs of wear. He looked nervous but determined. "Sir," said a woman at one of the stations, "Hegemony fleet is moving into attack position." "How many ships, Nari?" Minho asked. 200 confirmed. Maybe more hiding behind the asteroid field. Velthara watched the bridge crew exchange looks. They knew they were outnumbered. They knew they would probably die. But none of them suggested retreat. A voice crackled over the communication system. It spoke in the harsh language of the savage hegemony. "Human vessels, you are surrounded. Surrender immediately and your deaths will be quick." Minho looked at his crew. Each person nodded back at him. Velthara expected them to discuss surrender terms. Instead, Minho opened a channel to respond. "This is Captain Minho of the UES Defiant. We didn't come this far to only come this far." The words made no sense to Velthara. What did distance have to do with fighting? She watched as Minho turned to his crew. "All stations battle ready. Hyun, give me everything the engines can handle. Nari, target their lead ship. Everyone else, hold on tight." Velthara could not believe what she was seeing. The humans were actually going to fight. She checked her recording equipment. The Council would want to see this moment when humans realized their mistake. The hegemony fleet opened fire first. Massive energy beams cut through space. The human ships scattered like small fish avoiding a predator. But they did not run away. They charged forward. The Defiant shook as enemy fire hit its shields. Sparks flew from broken equipment. The lights flickered. Velthara heard a human in the engine room shouting over the noise. "Captain, I can give you more power, but it will damage the reactor." "Do it, Hyun," Minho shouted back. The ship surged forward with new speed. The other human vessels followed. They moved in patterns Velthara had never seen before. Instead of staying in formation, they split apart and attacked from different angles. Nari, the weapons officer, fired at the hegemony ships with incredible accuracy. Her hands moved quickly over the controls. Sweat ran down her face. "Got one!" she yelled as an enemy ship exploded. But the hegemony had too many ships. Energy beams hit the Defiant again and again. The hull began to crack. Systems failed one by one. Velthara prepared to record their surrender. Instead, she heard something that shocked her. The human crew began to sing. It was a simple song with words about standing together and never giving up. Their voices were rough and scared, but they sang anyway. Even as their ship broke apart around them, they sang. Velthara realized she was witnessing something her species had forgotten. These humans were not fighting because they were stupid. They were fighting because they chose to fight. They would rather die standing than live kneeling. For the first time in her long life, Velthara began to question everything she thought she knew. The battle continued for 6 hours. Velthara watched without blinking as the impossible happened before her eyes. The human fleet, outnumbered 4-1, was not just fighting back. They were winning. The Defiant moved like a dancer through space. Captain Minho gave orders with calm precision while his ship fell apart around him. When the main guns stopped working, they used backup weapons. When the backup weapons failed, they launched missiles. When they ran out of missiles, they rammed enemy ships. "Hyun, how are the engines?" Minho called to his engineer. The response came through static and the sound of emergency alarms. "Running at 150% capacity, sir. I can't promise how long they'll hold." "Just keep us moving." Velthara zoomed her sensors to watch Hyun in the engine room. The human was covered in grease and sweat. Burns marked his arms from electrical fires. The reactor behind him glowed dangerously bright. Any sane being would shut it down before it exploded. Instead, Hyun pushed it harder. On the bridge, Nari continued firing at enemy ships even though her targeting computer was destroyed. She calculated firing angles in her head. Using mathematics Velthara could barely follow. Her accuracy was perfect. Every shot hit its target. "Captain," Nari said, wiping blood from her forehead, "I count 43 enemy ships destroyed. And us? 17 human ships still fighting. The numbers should have been impossible." The hegemony had better weapons, stronger shields, and more experience, but they were losing because they had never fought anyone like humans before. Velthara watched a hegemony commander try to understand human tactics. The alien creature studied the battle data with confusion. Humans did not follow any known military doctrine. They made decisions that seemed random but somehow worked perfectly. When 3 human ships were surrounded, they did not surrender. Instead, they locked their controls and pointed their ships at the enemy fleet. The crews sang that same strange song as they turned their vessels into guided missiles. The explosions lit up space like new stars. Velthara felt something cold in her chest. She had never seen anyone sacrifice themselves willingly. In her culture, survival was the most important thing. You lived to fight another day. You preserved yourself for the greater good. But humans threw away their lives as if they meant nothing. No, that was wrong. They threw away their lives because their lives meant everything. The battle turned when Captain Minho made a decision that broke every rule of space combat. The Defiant was badly damaged. Its weapons were gone. Its shields were failing. Any reasonable commander would retreat. Instead, Minho ordered his ship to charge directly at the hegemony flagship. "Sir," Nari said quietly, "that's suicide." "Maybe," Minho replied. "But if we take out their command ship, the rest might scatter." "And if we don't?" Minho smiled. "Then we die trying." The crew did not argue. They did not question the order. Hyun pushed the dying reactor beyond all safety limits. Nari prepared the last torpedo. The bridge crew strapped themselves in for impact. Velthara watched the small human destroyer racing toward the massive hegemony warship. It looked like a tiny bird attacking a giant predator. The enemy ship fired everything at the approaching vessel. Energy beams tore through the Defiant's hull. Explosions erupted across its surface, but the ship kept coming. The hegemony flagship tried to move away, but it was too slow. The Defiant struck it directly in the command section. The impact tore both ships apart in a brilliant flash of light. Velthara expected the human fleet to collapse without their leader. Instead, another captain immediately took command. The battle continued without pause. It was as if losing their best ship only made the humans fight harder. The hegemony commander made his final mistake. He ordered his remaining ships to retreat. In his culture, a tactical withdrawal was logical when facing unexpected resistance. But he did not understand humans. The human fleet chased the retreating enemies across 3 star systems. They fought running battles through asteroid fields and around gas giant moons. Every time the hegemony tried to regroup, the humans hit them again. When it finally ended, the hegemony had lost 160 ships. The humans had 32 vessels left, most of them heavily damaged. By any military standard, both sides should have claimed victory and negotiated peace. Instead, the human admiral sent a message to the remaining hegemony forces. Run home. Tell your masters what happens when you threaten innocent people. Velthara saved every moment of the battle in her recording systems. She had enough data to write a complete report, but she realized she did not understand any of it. The tactics made no sense. The sacrifices seemed wasteful. The humans fought like they were insane. She decided to request a transfer to observe ground combat. Maybe watching humans fight on planets would help her understand their strange behavior. 3 days later, Velthara found herself approaching Proxima Station, a human military base on the edge of their territory. Intelligence reports said the hegemony was planning a major ground assault. She would finally see how humans fought when they could not run away. The observation post gave her a perfect view of the base. It was built into the rocky surface of a dead moon. Defensive walls surrounded landing platforms and supply depots. Guard towers watched the empty landscape for signs of attack. Velthara studied the human defenders through her sensors. Most of them were young, barely out of childhood by human standards. They carried primitive kinetic weapons and wore simple body armor. Some showed signs of previous battles, missing limbs replaced by mechanical parts, scars across their faces, haunted looks in their eyes. Their leader was Colonel Isul, a woman who had lost both legs and one arm in earlier fights. Mechanical replacements allowed her to walk and work, but Velthara could see the pain in her movements. Any civilized species would have retired such a damaged individual. Humans gave her command of their most important base. This will be educational, Velthara said to herself as she prepared her recording equipment. She had no idea how right she was. The hegemony attack began before dawn. Dropships fell from the sky like metal rain. They carried terrorcore warriors, genetically enhanced soldiers bred for conquest. Each one was twice the size of a human and equipped with advanced weapons. They had never lost a ground battle. Velthara expected the human base to fall within hours. Instead, she found herself watching something that would haunt her dreams for centuries to come. The humans were not just defending their base, they were protecting their home. 3 weeks after Luna Base fell, Velthara found herself walking through the ruins of Sol on Earth's surface. The hegemony had landed ground forces across the planet, expecting quick conquest. Instead, they found something that confused and frightened them more than any enemy they had ever faced. The humans refused to act defeated. Velthara's assignment was simple: document the final collapse of human resistance. The Galactic Council wanted proof that primitive species could not stand against advanced military power. Earth was supposed to provide that proof, but Earth was not cooperating. She walked through neighborhoods where artillery had turned buildings into rubble. Emergency broadcasts should have been announcing surrender. Instead, local radio stations played music and told jokes. Children's programs continued broadcasting from hidden transmitters. Humans acted as if losing a war was just another inconvenience. In a small park surrounded by bombed buildings, Velthara found an elderly human tending a garden. He was maybe 70 years old, with white hair and hands scarred by decades of work. Despite the destruction around him, he carefully watered tomato plants growing in neat rows. His name was Day, according to the identification scanner in Velthara's equipment. Before the war, he had been a teacher. Now he spent his days growing food for anyone who needed it. "Excuse me," Velthara said, using her translation device to speak Korean. "Why are you here? The evacuation centers are safer." Day looked up with calm eyes that held no fear. "Safer for who?" "For you." The hegemony forces could return at any time. They could, Day agreed, returning to his plants. "But someone needs to take care of these tomatoes. And the people who come here need food." Velthara studied the old human with confusion. "You risk your life for vegetables?" Day smiled, showing the lines that age and laughter had carved into his face. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small photograph. It showed a young girl, maybe 8 years old, with bright eyes and a happy smile. "This is my granddaughter, Yuna," he said softly. She was killed in the first hegemony attack on the city. She used to help me with the garden. Said she wanted to grow enough food to feed the whole world. I am sorry for your loss, Velthara said, but she is gone. Why continue her work? Day was quiet for a moment, looking at the photograph. When he spoke, his voice was gentle but firm. I'm not brave. I'm just too tired to keep running. But maybe if I plant something here, something good can grow when this is over. He put the photograph away and picked up his watering can. Yuna believed people should take care of each other. I can't bring her back, but I can keep her dream alive. Velthara watched him move between the plants with careful attention. Each tomato, each leaf, each flower received the same gentle care. It was illogical. It was inefficient. It was completely human. Over the following days, she found similar scenes across the planet. In the ruins of New York, a man named Kai broadcast children's stories from a hidden radio station, reading books to young listeners who might never see another peaceful day. When hegemony patrols came close, he would move his equipment and continue broadcasting from another location. Why risk capture for stories? Velthara asked him through her communication equipment. Kai's voice came back with quiet determination. Because children need to hear that there are still good stories in the world. If we stop telling them, the darkness wins. In the subway tunnels beneath London, a woman named Minji had established an underground school. 30 children gathered each day to learn mathematics, science, and literature, while bombs fell overhead. The lessons continued even when the tunnel shook from nearby explosions. Education is pointless if they might not survive, Velthara observed. Minji looked at her with the patience of someone who had explained this many times before. Education is most important when survival is uncertain. These children need to know they have value beyond just staying alive. In a field hospital hidden in the mountains of Colorado, a doctor named Wu treated wounded soldiers and civilians alike. He worked without rest, performing surgery by flashlight when the power failed. When hegemony forces approached, he refused to evacuate. The wounded cannot be moved, he explained simply, so we stay. You could be killed? Yes, but they will definitely die if I leave. Everywhere Velthara went, she found the same pattern. Humans who had lost everything but kept working. People who faced impossible odds but refused to give up. Men and women who chose hope over logic, love over safety, duty over survival. None of it made sense. In her culture, individuals survived so the species could continue. Personal sacrifice was calculated to achieve maximum benefit. Resources were preserved for future generations. Everything followed logical patterns based on mathematical analysis of costs and benefits. But humans made no such calculations. They spent their lives freely, not because the math worked out, but because they believed their actions mattered. They planted gardens and graveyards. They told stories during artillery barrages. They taught children who might not live to use their education. They acted as if hope was more important than probability. Velthara returned to Day's garden repeatedly. Something about the old teacher fascinated her. He represented everything her species had evolved beyond: emotional decision-making, inefficient resource allocation, irrational attachment to lost causes. Yet watching him work filled her with an emotion she had no name for. Why do you keep coming back? Day asked one afternoon as she observed him from behind a ruined wall. I am trying to understand, Velthara replied honestly. Your species faces extinction. Your planet is occupied. Your military is defeated. Yet you act as if victory is still possible. Day sat down on a piece of broken concrete, his old joints creaking. Victory? I don't know about victory. But defeat? Defeat is when you stop trying, when you stop caring, when you stop believing that tomorrow might be better than today. He gestured toward his tomato plants. These might never grow to maturity. Birds might eat them. Soldiers might trample them. The soil might be too damaged by radiation. But if I don't plant them, they definitely won't grow. That is not logical. No, Day agreed. It's not logical. It's human. He stood up slowly and picked up his watering can. Logic says we should surrender. Logic says resistance is pointless. Logic says the strong always defeat the weak. He began watering the plants again, each one receiving careful attention. But logic never grew a tomato. Logic never raised a child. Logic never built anything worth defending. Velthara felt something crack inside her chest. For 300 years she had lived according to logical principles. Survival was paramount. Efficiency was sacred. Emotion was weakness. Her species had transcended such primitive impulses through millions of years of evolution. But watching Day tend his garden, she realized they had not transcended anything. They had simply forgotten what it meant to be alive. The humans aren't fighting because they're fearless, she whispered to herself as the old teacher worked in the fading daylight. They're fighting because they're afraid. Afraid of losing everything they love. Afraid of leaving nothing behind. Afraid that giving up means their losses were meaningless. That night, Velthara sat in her hidden observation post and began writing her final report. For the first time in her career, she struggled to find words that could capture what she had witnessed. How do you explain love to a species that has forgotten how to feel it? How do you describe hope to beings who calculate everything in terms of probability? How do you convey the power of choosing to stand when logic demands you kneel? As dawn broke over the ruins of Sol, Velthara watched Day return to his garden. Somewhere in the distance, hegemony artillery was shelling another part of the city. Radio broadcasts reported more defeats, more losses, more reasons to surrender. But in a small park surrounded by destruction, an old teacher watered his tomatoes and sang softly to himself. It was a song about spring returning after winter, about new growth after death, about hope surviving in the darkest times. Velthara realized she was watching the most powerful force in the universe. Not advanced technology or superior weapons or telepathic abilities. She was watching someone who refused to be broken, and for the first time in 300 years, Velthara understood what it meant to have hope. The hegemony Terror Corps landed like falling hammers across Proxima Station. Each warrior stood 3 meters tall with muscles enhanced by genetic modification. Their black armor could stop most human weapons. Their claws could tear through metal. They had conquered 47 worlds without losing a single battle. Velthara watched from her hidden observation post as the creatures emerged from their dropships. They moved with perfect coordination, communicating through bio-neural implants. Each squad knew exactly where to attack. Their strategy was simple and effective. Spread terror, break enemy morale. Accept surrender, but the humans did not surrender. Colonel Isel stood on the command platform despite having artificial legs and a mechanical arm. She looked small and fragile next to the massive alien warriors landing around her base. Her voice carried across the Defenders' communication network, calm and steady. All stations, this is Isul. Remember your training. Remember why we're here. Nobody fights alone. The Terror Corps expected screaming. They expected panic. They expected the humans to break and run like every other species they had faced. Instead, they heard something that confused them. The humans were laughing. Private June, barely 19 years old, checked his rifle with steady hands. He stood at Gate 7, the most likely target for the first assault. Behind him, older soldiers prepared ammunition and medical supplies. None of them showed fear. "June," called Sergeant Kim from the next position. "You scared?" June grinned, his young face bright with something that was not quite sanity. "Terrified. But my grandmother always said the only thing worse than being scared is being boring." The Terror Corps attacked at dawn. They moved in perfect waves, each creature a killing machine trained from birth for war. Their weapons fired energy bolts that could punch through steel. Their roars echoed across the empty moon, designed to freeze prey with terror. The human weapons seemed pitiful in comparison. Kinetic rifles that fired metal bullets, grenades that used chemical explosives, armor made from simple ceramic plates. Everything looked primitive and weak until the humans started using them. June fired his first shot at a creature charging toward Gate 7. The bullet should have bounced off its armor. Instead, it found the tiny gap between helmet and chest plate. The Terror Corps warrior stumbled but kept coming. June's second shot hit the same spot. The third shot dropped the creature. How? Velthara whispered to herself. She magnified her sensors to watch June more closely. The young human moved with impossible precision. His eyes tracked multiple targets while his hands reloaded automatically. He fired single shots instead of automatic bursts, making each bullet count. When one Terror Corps warrior fell, he immediately switched to the next target. Around him, the other defenders worked together like parts of a complex machine. When someone ran out of ammunition, others shared their supplies. When the wounded needed help, healthy soldiers dragged them to safety without being ordered. They anticipated each other's needs and covered each other's weaknesses. But the Terror Corps kept coming. For every creature that fell, 2 more took its place. The human weapons, no matter how well used, could not match alien technology forever. Gate 7's defenses began to crack. June, fall back to secondary position. Colonel Isel ordered through the communication system. Negative, June replied, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. If I leave, they break through. Send everyone else back. I'll hold here as long as I can. Velthara expected Isel to order the boy to retreat. No single soldier could hold a position against the Terror Corps alone. It was suicide, but instead the colonel's voice came back with quiet respect. Understood. We'll get reinforcements to you as soon as possible. Take your time, June said. I'm not going anywhere. What happened next broke something inside Velthara's understanding of the universe. June stood alone at Gate 7 as 50 Terror Corps warriors charged his position. His rifle ammunition ran out after the first 10 creatures. He switched to grenades, throwing them with deadly accuracy. When the grenades were gone, he used improvised explosives made from base supplies. When those ran out, he picked up a piece of broken metal and kept fighting. Velthara watched the young human face creatures twice his size with nothing but a makeshift weapon and absolute determination. He should have died in seconds. Instead, he lasted 6 hours. The Terror Corps had been trained to break enemy morale through fear and overwhelming force. They had never faced someone who simply refused to be broken. June did not retreat when they roared. He did not panic when they surrounded him. He just kept fighting. When his improvised weapon broke, he threw rocks. When he ran out of rocks, he used his bare hands. When the creatures finally knocked him down, he crawled forward and kept fighting from the ground. Colonel Isul reached Gate 7 just as June finally lost consciousness. He lay in a circle of dead Terror Corps warriors, still gripping a broken plasma rifle he had taken from one of them. Blood covered his face and hands. His armor was shredded. But he was alive. Around him lay the bodies of 17 Terror Corps warriors. Why? Velthara asked aloud, her voice echoing in the empty observation post. Why didn't he run? Why didn't he surrender? She activated her communication system and sent a direct message to Colonel Isul. This is Galactic Observer Velthara. I am authorized to speak with human military personnel. I need to understand something. Isol's response came quickly. Go ahead, Observer. Your soldier at Gate 7. He faced impossible odds. He could have retreated and lived. Why did he choose to stay and almost die? There was a long pause. When Isol spoke again, her voice carried the weight of too many battles and too many losses. Because someone has to stand, and we decided it might as well be us. The simple words hit Velthara like a physical blow. In her culture, sacrifice was calculated. You gave up something small to gain something larger. You preserved the greater good by accepting smaller losses. Everything was logical, balanced, reasonable. But humans did not calculate. They simply chose to stand where others would not. The battle for Proxima Station continued for 3 more days. The Terror Corps brought in reinforcements. They used psychological warfare. They offered terms for surrender. Nothing worked. Every time they broke through one human position, another group of defenders appeared to take its place. When it finally ended, the hegemony had lost 60% of their Terror Corps. The humans had held their base. More importantly, they had sent a message that would spread throughout the galaxy. Humans could not be broken through fear, but Velthara barely noticed the strategic implications. She was too busy trying to understand what she had witnessed. These were not professional soldiers fighting for pay. They were not warriors seeking glory. They were ordinary people who had made an extraordinary choice. They had chosen to stand. As she prepared her preliminary reports, Velthara realized she needed to see more. The space battles and ground combat were just part of the story. She needed to understand what made humans willing to sacrifice everything for abstract ideas like duty and honor. She requested transfer to Earth itself, where the hegemony was preparing their final assault. If she was going to understand human nature, she needed to see them in their most desperate hour. She had no idea that what she would find there would change her forever.